that's why I'm a global, an unrepentant global free market capitalist.
Okay, so you did so on this subject of global free market capitalism, which I'm also a little bit torn on because I had this problem with regulation. So not like personally regulating myself, but
so you're a protectionist?
Government regulating. Well,
you're an isolationist. Which one?
I'm a risk mitigator. So I like so I think. Well, forget about what I think. First talk about because you did this thing with NAFTA. You were a big NAFTA supporter. You got the flags flying in the
not entirely. It's not perfect, but I'm still in favor of it. It's better than nothing.
All right. So, and I never really became conversant in the details of NAFTA or why particular people were for it or against it. But what do you like about it?
Free trade is good. Cross-border trade is great. Everybody deserves a chance to have a job, feed their family. Mm-hmm. And if you put blockades, if you put barriers up in the form of tariffs or subsidies, this inhibits free trade. It raises cost for everybody. How's that good? So that's what NAFTA was to me. At least we had a three-way trade, Canada, U.S., Mexico. But even that wasn't fair, because if you dig into the very first NAFTA, we didn't eliminate all of our agricultural subsidies. Now, did we? Not even close. I mean, the guys are getting paid not to plant.
Oh, yeah. I never really thought about how that...
Okay. Well, no, it's an interesting piece of history because I got to look into this a little bit when I went up to testify before Congress because I want to make sure I had my facts right. And so we're paying all sorts of agricultural subsidies here in the United States, and then we're shipping subsidized agricultural products across the border into Mexico. Is that referred to as dumping?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. And so we bankrupted Mexican farmers, and that was the beginning of the exodus.
So if you trace that out even in a more complete circle, the federal government, I like to always make sure that's clear because I think that people have lost sight of the fact that not all governments are the federal government. But the federal government is taking money from taxpayers, giving it to farmers to pay them to grow food that the taxpayers don't need.
Or pay them not to grow.
Or pay them not to grow, right? Yeah.
Right.
No, in the case of sending it to Mexico. So I'm growing this stuff. So I'm taking money from taxpayers, giving it to the farmers to grow food that I'm going to ship to another country.
To bankrupt the farmers, to cause them to have to immigrate into the United States, which creates a problem then later on.
To bankrupt the farmers in the other country. Right. To bring more farmers in. Yeah.
So that was the flaw in NAFTA to me, but it was better than nothing. At least.
Well, what is nothing? What happens when you have nothing? I'm a big fan of nothing.
Okay, what do you drive again?
A
car. I drive a pickup because I'm a Texas boy, right? Okay.
I've seen your pickup and it looks a lot like a Mustang.
No, it's F-250. Did you realize that my pickup truck is more expensive because of a tariff that the Europeans put on chickens back during LBJ times? Remember Lyndon Baines Johnson? He was from Texas too.
Yeah, he was.
And so we put.
I'm not a big fan of LBJ, but.
Oh no, and you'll be even less after this because the Europeans didn't want us to sell chickens into Europe, so they put a tariff on chickens. We retaliated with a tariff on brandy. That ought to upset you. And
brandy, what's she got to do with it?
And pickup trucks, and that is still going on today. So my pickup truck, it cost more. Because we have inhibited fair trade.
Yeah, but that's not nothing. So you said NAFTA's better than nothing.
Nothing is what happens when you have nothing, then people will start throwing tariffs back at each other. And at least NAFTA will prevent tariffs. And so this is a way to prevent tariffs.
Okay, so when you say it's better than nothing, what you mean is it's a protection against something that's going to happen, and it's not a perfect protection, but it's better than nothing.
Right. You see what they're doing now.
You still get pregnant, but there's a fair
tossing
amount
out tariffs left and right. And so if you have something in place, then at least it slows down those politicians a wee bit.
Okay. All right. So in that sense, NAFTA was really... So in that sense,
it's a tariff prevention technique.
Philosophically, I should like NAFTA because what it really is it's something that prevents regulation. Well, tariffs aren't regulation, but it prevents government interference in the natural order of things.
Right, and it raises costs to everyone.
Yeah.
How's that good?
Not NAFTA. NAFTA doesn't raise costs.
No, NAFTA's good.
Yeah.
Tariffs are bad.
Tariffs are bad. That's
That's
what
why
I mean,
my truck costs more. You don't care because you drive a car. Just be glad they took it off brandy, because I know you drink brandy.
I do, a little bit of brandy on occasion. We don't have any brandy in the bar here. It's something I didn't really think
There's
about.
no tariffs. You ought to.
We have everything else, but we don't have brandy.
Tariffs were the original way to fund the government, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
But then I don't like double taxation either. So they either ought to fund the government with income tax or with tariffs, but not with both.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a big fan of. Let's go back to when we didn't have any income tax, federal income tax. But I get your point now. But I want to back up. So here's my problem with the globalism. Now, if you're talking about North America, Canada, U.S., Mexico, okay, we're kind of all neighbors. It makes sense. What I worry about is the more we turn the whole world into a global economy, as we do that more and more, we increase dependencies and risk, because we don't have a global happy society. We don't have so now
But interdependence encourages that.
Well, in theory, but I haven't seen it work yet. Well, I guess to some degree, OPEC, it works for them. But
Indeed.
but you know what I'm saying? So you're taking the more that we globalize the economy, but we don't have control over. In fact, let me back up. It just makes it bigger and more complex. And anytime you have bigger and more complex, you have more risk from that. I even think the United States, even at the national level, is too big and complex for most social, economic kinds of things that you try to do. That's why I'm always advocating that, let's just kind of operate more or less at the state level. And you agree on this, right? Like the federal government's job should be
minimalized,
pretty minimal,
yes.
Right? And I would say compared to what it's doing today, where you and I think it should be, is pretty much invisible in comparison.
Let's see, national infrastructure and defense. What else? That's all I can come up with.
If you count interstate trade and things like that, maybe. But the main reason why I think that is, besides them being a bunch of slimy bastards in Washington, D.C., the main reason why I think that is, I was just there, by the way, last week. There was a few nice people there. I met some good people. The main reason is because at the national level, it's too big to operate effectively at the level that people would care about. So it's just in principle, you're doomed to fail.
Name
at that
anything
scale.
that they're efficient at. Now, effective, I'll give them that. We've got
at a global level, it's even worse. It's even less likely that you're going to be.
It's not efficient.
Shit's not going to go wrong.
Look at the post office and look at the military. We spend more on military than any other country, and it's extremely effective, but it's not efficient.
No, it's not.
So because there's no competition.
Yeah, well, and even just, I think, all right, so in the business world, this, being a business guy, one of the things so I spent a lot of years in consulting, like big IT systems, applications consulting, things like that, right? And then I also spent time consulting with small tech companies who were trying to be bigger tech companies. And the one recurring theme that always comes up in all of these things is the trouble that you have when you start to try to scale. What works at this scale does not work at this scale, and so we're constantly trying to solve. In the business world, we are constantly trying to solve the problem of scaling, prevent against the issues that you incur when scaling. Scaling is the really hard thing. So that.
And when you fail, you should go bankrupt. That is the creative destruction of the free market system. But the building we're sitting in here used to be a supercomputer farm. But the fellow forgot to keep his supercomputers up to date. Okay, and if he'd have been too big to fail, like your friends at some of the banks, the government would have propped him up. Instead, he went bankrupt, as it should be. And the creative destruction of the free market system means now we occupy it. We have a welding research lab. We have a podcast.
We have a podcast.
So So why should we create yet another zombie company with subsidies?
I'm going to get in trouble
when we could simply let them die.
Okay,
move out of the way.
I'm with you on that. That's true. However, the main point
you're benefiting from it.
The main point that I was trying to get at is, in the business world, we accept this problem of scaling as a given. Scaling is difficult. Scaling is hard, and at a certain size, it becomes untenable, right? So why do we not? But when it comes to government structures and organizations, we seem to forget that things work better when they're smaller.
Lean and mean.
Yeah. So.
Oh, we don't forget. It's just now it's a monster, and it's hard to control it.
Yeah. But but that's why. So when it comes to the global free market stuff, the reason why I kind of tend to think, and some of the events that have happened in the last couple of years point at this, I tend to think maybe it's better if you guys stay over there and figure your shit out, and we'll stay over here. I don't necessarily mean in little tiny pods, but let's not try to turn the whole globe. Let's not try to unite the whole thing economically when we're a real long way, because none of the other stuff, all the other socioeconomic stuff doesn't work on a global scale. Like, we have problems. We get into fights with each other, and we have wars, and we have things and we have these half-assed organizations that are trying to, like the World Economic Forum and all these people who somehow know what's best for the world. So by connecting our economy into all of that uncertainty, you're just asking for trouble, I think.
Well, trade is either good or bad, so you can't have it halfway. So let's take your solution to its ultimate state.
Yes.
You and I are not allowed to do any trade with anybody. So now I've got to raise my own food. I got to make my own clothes. I got to build my own house. I got to drill my own oil well. That ain't good. The whole point of the modern economic system is whoever is the most efficient should do it.
But are the only two options either everybody drills their own oil well, or the entire world is interconnected economically? Like, is there nothing in the middle?
I'm just saying, if an idea is good, it's good, and I think it is. I believe that if in some small country on the other side of the world, if they're extremely good at whatever, they should be the ones that are doing that, and they should benefit from it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, that's true. Well, it brings up another point, which is one of the reasons why. So if all the governments stayed out of all the trade, then all the trade would probably work itself out, because the bad people would fail and the good people would succeed, or sometimes the bad people would win because they're bad people and they do stuff they're not supposed to do. But in the end, it's when the governments get in and either try to turn the dials like they do in Europe and now we try to do in the US, or when you have governments that just nationalize everything and just control it to their own benefit, then you're tilting the scale. Like you got a thumb on the scale now when it comes to trade, and it's not gonna, like, the natural economic forces aren't gonna win out the way they should because people are messing with it.
You've distorted the playing field, and that's not good. I don't like subsidies. I don't like tariffs.
Authoritarian governments that nationalize entire industries.
Thank goodness we haven't nationalized our petroleum industry. Although there's a few people in Congress that have suggested it a few times, but that's what's keeping energy prices at as low as they are, and they're not low now, but it'd be worse.
Yeah. Did you know that Ohio just declared natural gas green energy?
In many ways it is.
I know some of the people. Well, it burns clean.
Hey, let's go nuclear. I'm a huge nuclear fan too, but that's we're not even letting that.
Yeah, I think
happen.
Yeah, that whole Chernobyl thing just kind of put everybody off.
Well, there's something about 3 Mile Island too. That was a bit of a problem.
that one was.
And then I think Fukushima that didn't encourage anybody. But even the Japanese are now powering theirs back up. But But that's that. That's
Okay, that's not in my notebook.
okay. Here's what I want to know. Okay, you got all your tariffs that made you happy, right? So because you're happy about tariffs.
No, I'm not.
And by the
I'm
way,
not
that
happy
was
about
one of the
tariffs.
3 things that Trump did wrong.
I'm okay with tariffs if we take away federal income tax. That'd be all right.
Yeah, but you like tariffs for protectionism, and I don't.
No, I never said I like the tariffs. I just said, in fact, I agreed with you that NAFTA protects against. So I'm against government intervention, and tariffs represent government intervention. So if NAFTA protects, and I didn't really think about. I didn't have the education on NAFTA until just now. It was kind of before my time. I'm a lot younger than you.
Is that what you're saying?
So, but let's say I did like tariffs. What were you going to say?
Where did all the money go? We've raised it. Trump started. Trump was bad about
That's
that.
easy.
He was
Area
supposed
51.
Is that where the money's going?
Easy.
Yeah, that's if we're going to collect money from tariffs, at least it ought to go to something useful. I haven't seen anything tangible and useful.
Well, I haven't seen. Yeah, there's not a lot of tax money that goes to anything. I mean, tariffs are tax, right?
Yeah, so where'd the money go?
Yeah.
Because we put tariffs on steel. That has been hard on us here at Arc Specialties because we use a lot of steel.
You do use a lot, yeah.
Right. So that all of my products get more expensive. I become less competitive on a global basis, and yet you're happy with this.
No, I never said I was for tariffs.
How about subsidies? You like
Subsidies?
those?
No, hell no.
So how are you gonna? So you're, and I agree with you that there's some things that are strategically important that ought to be manufactured within the country. So I would say defense, medical, food. Those are the 3 things, and I encourage those to be made right here in America.
Well, actually, I'd prefer that we took our food and sent it somewhere else and we buy other people's food. But that's because we kind of, well, that's a whole other subject, but we haven't done good things to our food supply in the U.S. That's why other countries won't buy it from us.
But I think this whole COVID thing has demonstrated to people that these long, fragile supply chains are problematic. And so, once again, the free market system is taking care of things. So we're trying to reshore our chips. We're reshoring our...
Yeah, okay, good point.
That's the free market system taking care of you without government intervention.
Yeah. I guess when I sit there and think, well, maybe we're better off if we just kind of do our thing and you do your thing, I imagine in the fantasy world in my head, I imagine that happening just because that's what people want to do. But in reality, the only way that you could cause that to happen is for government to intervene, because the natural flow is the trade is going to happen.
You're going to want French brandy.
Yeah. So, well, Spanish.
Spanish. But nevertheless, overseas.
More of a Spanish brandy.
They're good at making brandy, and they should be rewarded for that.
Yeah. I'm with you. All right, so that gets to another subject. I know we want to talk about STEM, but before we do that, because this one's more related to that one, to what we just talked about, is this notion of, there's been a couple things in the news lately. Well, minimum wage has been in the news for a long. People have been fighting about minimum wage.
You're talking about the Robot Employment Act. Whenever they raise the minimum wage, I sell more robots.
Sell more robots.
I wonder why that is.
Yeah,
that's the free market system effect again.
And most recently, there was a really interesting thing that I was really torn on this because I thought, ooh, this has me in a quandary against myself because it was somebody at the FTC was floated this idea of banning at the federal level, banning non-competes.
I'm all in.
Which I'm against non-competes.
Good. We agree.
But I'm also against government regulation.
Well, yeah, but
so
at some point you can say you're against murder and you don't mind that being a law, right?
Yeah, but
thou shalt not kill.
But murder is a thou shalt not commit murder. Actually, is the better translation. But murder is gravely more immoral than a non-compete agreement, right?
I've seen non-competes mess up people's lives.
Fair enough. So, but my point is there a way? I mean, I hate that anytime we want things to be different, we want people to behave differently, the first thing we try to do is, well, the government should step in and do something, right? I'm against the FTC doing it without Congress to begin with, right?
Well, I'm hoping the free market does it. Like I tell my people, I said, if I ever ask you to sign a non-compete, wad it up and throw it at me.
Right. So I actually said this in a LinkedIn conversation that some people were having, and I was like, well, is there a third option, right? Besides the government, and the worst form of, legislating something is fine because presumably elected representatives acted on behalf of the people that elected them and did what they wanted in my little fantasy world. but just regulating bodies just do whatever they want, right? Like there's nothing really in the Constitution about that. So
and we don't get to vote on it.
That's my point. So but like, what if everybody just started ignoring their non-competes?
Well, see, maybe that's what the end effect of all this will be. People are thinking about it, talking about it, questioning it.
People just say, I'm not going to, yeah, fine. Or what if people just started refusing to sign them?
Right. So we're talking to all you guys.
We have to all do it together, though. That's you can't
Absolutely. So we're talking to everybody out there, right? And so make sure that if you take a new job, that you get good benefits, good vacation, good people, and no non-compete.
No, yeah. Yeah,
that ought to be part of your selection criteria.
But now let's look at it on the part of the employer. So
my job as an employer is to create an environment where people want to work. It's not to handcuff them.
But okay, so we should specify what we mean by non-compete, because not all non-competes are written the same way, and sometimes people get non-compete confused with non-solicit. But if an employer says, if you leave here, I don't want you to go work for somebody else that competes with me, the question is why? Now, if the answer is because I don't want them to have your talent, that's obvious.
That ain't right.
That's wrong. But if it's, I don't want you to take
my IP,
my customers, right. Now, I know you signed a confidentiality agreement when you came here, but
that's different.
But it's real hard.
That's hard to differentiate, but that's the best of all the bad options.
Like, how do I really know? So if you go work for my competitor, how do I know that they're not going to get you to? You could violate your confidentiality agreement. I would never know, right? Most times, unless you're working at a very high level, unless you're a CEO, senior vice president type. But most people, if I'm building robots for you and I go build well, nobody else builds robots in America. But if they did, and if I went over there, it'd be hard for you to know whether I shared any secrets with them, right?
Very challenging. So that's like I said, that's my goal. My day in, day out job is to make this place a place that people want to work. That's why I've given away 30-some-odd Rolexes to the 10-year people. And, so
Johnny have his Rolex yet?
No, he's only been here like 5. There's hope for him, though. But
he's shopping, though. I saw him shopping. Pick out which one he wants.
Got a nice one. And that's my job every day, is to make it a place that they want to work. And so if you handcuff them, that ain't good. Now, I've got some golden handcuffs. There's nothing wrong with golden handcuffs.
All right, right.
But this other kind of handcuff, I don't care for it.
Now, by golden handcuffs, you mean the kind that just make you want to stay here?
Yeah.
There's not like
a positive, but
there's
no
not a
negative.
penalty for if you go work for my competitor.
You just lose the golden handcuffs.
Well, okay. So is it if you leave at all, or if you leave and go work for my competitor?
No, if you leave at all. Must be present to win.
Must be, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we come up with things like that.
Yeah, you're right. So there's other ways.
We had free work boots too. You never know what's going to motivate people, but. That keeps me honest. If I had people locked in here like a vesting period on a 401k, I don't believe in that either. That's the same thing. So we have 0 vesting period.
Well, that is golden handcuffs, right? Like vesting.
No, you're instantaneously vested here, and that's the way it should be. So you could walk the next day.
Okay, so the 401k is not part of the golden handcuffs. Mm-mm. But it could be. I mean, some companies use it that way.
I think that's, see, now we're disagreeing. I think that's a negative thing you're saying. I
Well, so if you have some sort of something that's going to keep people, if you're going to have some sort of must be present to win type of thing, what difference does it make whether it's a 401k or it's some sort of other?
I think retirements are too important. I think when you're old, you shouldn't have to eat Alpo, and so we do matching, but we do instantaneous vesting.
Yeah,
and I think that's the
on
right thing to do.
On the match, right?
Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. That's all you got to know.
You've been quoting a lot of Bible at me lately. I don't. Ever since we went to that breakfast breakfast meeting, they started out with the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. I haven't done the Pledge of Allegiance in a long time.
I saw you even put your hand over your heart. I was proud of you.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do. You know what you're not supposed to do is put your hand over your heart for the national anthem. People do it all the time, though.
Take your hat off, though, right?
You take your hat. Yeah, you got to take your hat off. And if you're in the military, you salute. But the hand over your heart, that's just for the Pledge of Allegiance. But we're trying to get rid of the Pledge of Allegiance anyway.
You speak for yourself.
So
did I get you lined out? Have I? You haven't quite convinced me the tariffs and subsidies and other distortions of the free market economy are good.
So I'm not for tariffs and subsidies. What I'm for is not creating so much global interconnection and everything because it creates dependencies and risks. However, what you did make me realize is that those connections are going to happen unless you do something to prevent them, and the thing that you do to prevent them is tariffs and subsidies, and those are bad.
There you go.
So what I wish is everybody would just be sensible and not. Are they sneezing over there?
I hope so. COVID.
Yeah. So it's not that we. So the global free market forces are more like the natural thing that's going like the water is going to run, and the only way that you stop it from running is you put a dam up, which is tariffs and subsidies. Whereas in my little fantasy world, it's more like everybody just is sensible and says, maybe we ought to do all this connecting everything because it's going to give us trouble later.
See, I don't think it's more like water flowing down a hill. I'm sitting over here with a whole bushel of apples, and you're over there with 3 chickens. And I'm good at growing apples, you're good at growing chickens. And we go, hey, how many apples for a chicken? So that's voluntary. That's not a force of nature.
But we got apples and chickens, and we don't even have to leave Texas. Well, we don't have apples.
Yeah, but you like Spanish brandy.
I don't have to get apples from China.
You like Spanish brandy for a reason.
Yeah, but if you told me the only thing you're going to be able to drink from now on is Texas whiskey and whatever tequila you can sneak in over the border, I'll tell you, I'm not going to have a quality. I'm not going to suffer. My quality of life's not going to suffer.
I'm going to tell you, my dad jumped into France with a bazooka during World War II to protect our freedoms, and one of these freedoms is trade.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. But it does create the globalism of supply chain.
It creates problems. Yeah, we got fragile supply chains.
Right.
And right now, if you want to have a nightmare tonight, think about what happens if Taiwan, who's supplying all the chips for the world, gets taken over by some large Asian country. Maybe nothing. Maybe nothing. Because trade is the lubricant that keeps the world running. So maybe nothing. But on the other hand, little worrisome.
Yeah. I guess the other thing that kind of gets me is when our government, our country, and so we have government leaders in the country, we have corporate leaders, we have industry leaders, when they don't think about who they're doing business with, or the government what they're encouraging in terms of maybe that's not a good country to get in bed with.
Oh yeah, if you recall, it's about 8 or so years ago. The Department of Commerce actually was encouraging me to work with Iran, and so we started working on a deal for oil field equipment. And so I brought it back to him. I said, nope.
I thought you were going to say housing, but I've seen this episode.
Oil's is bigger. And so I said, all right, hey, we got this thing. I'm doing what you told me. And they go, nope, can't do it. So
wait, who said no?
Department of Commerce.
Oh,
First they encouraged it, then they prevented it. So
Yeah.
it's that's once again that's central planning at its best.
yeah. You know, but like you said, it kind of irons itself out. I mean, we got a bunch of companies, big companies right now rethinking their China strategy, right? Apple's moving some stuff out of there. I think I saw that, and some other. But here's where we do agree: is the free market forces stand the best chance of fixing problems and ironing things out over anything else. It takes longer, and I think that's why people get impatient and they want government to push some kind of magic button or turn some kind of dial. But that just makes a mess.
Things will flow at their own
pace. You have to be patient enough to let the free market do its thing.
I'll go you one better. I'll go, what made America great was democracy to one degree, but to a greater degree, it's the free market system.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because democracy is still one of those things that we haven't. I mean, we kind of have.
No, it's great, but
our system isn't built entirely on democracy.
hey, you're the guy with the show, saving the dream. The dream ain't democracy. The dream is the free market economy.
No, I'm with you, and that's what I'm saying. And in fact, I think sometimes we put this overemphasis on democracy. Well, really, our national government is a representative republic, which is a little different from democracy.
In many ways better.
And way better, I think. I think it's way better.
Just don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
They'll be upset when they realize what's going on.
The people don't elect the president. The states elect the president, right? So, and there's good thinking behind all that. But anyway,
the reason we don't have a direct democracy is to quote, I think it was Mr. Thomas Jefferson. He said, once people realize they have the right to vote themselves goods, this will herald the end of the republic.
That's right.
And that's why it has to be a representative system.
And Benjamin Franklin said, you've got your republic if you can keep it. So, because he recognized it.
And it's outlasted how many? Pretty much everything.
But it is interesting to see how people don't think that way anymore. Like when we had all this nonsense about presidential elections and who really won them.
That's never happened before.
Right. But you saw a lot of clamoring among the unwashed masses, a lot of clamoring about, well, we should just count everybody's votes and do away with all this electoral nonsense, right? And they're saying, because every vote counts. And, every vote does count. It just counts a different way. And it just shows that they don't really understand how the system was put together. But the thing about democracy is that people are supposed to get what they want.
But you can vote yourself goods, and that will herald the end of the republic.
Okay, so
all right,
let's talk about STEM.
All right, where are we on time? Is this the second show?
They didn't start the timer.
Darn it!
How far are we in, guys? What, about 30 minutes? 30 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. Oh, we can keep going. We'll do this all in one.
STEM.
This is all in one.
Science, technology, engineering, math.
Yeah, good things. Some people should do those things. But not all people should do those things.
What should the other people do?
Other things.
Like what?
So, okay. So, you know how we complain about how, like, people are dumbasses and they don't know how to think for themselves? Well, that, like, thinking rationally, that doesn't come from technical education.
What? The scientific method? That is the basis for this. You come up with a hypothesis and you test it. That's rational thinking. I'm all in.
Yeah,
that's the S of STEM.
But nobody's gonna. The scientific method is a little bit heavy to apply to everything that happens in your life.
Oh, you need to take more time.
maybe so. No, so people don't. People talk about. People refer to things in history all the time, and it's clear that they really have no idea. They don't really understand the history. They don't. Things like, in fact.
So the history of STEM is important. I'll give you that.
History of STEM is important. Remember Phil Gramm?
Oh yeah,
Senator Phil Gramm, Texas Senator. So he started something recently as part of the American Enterprise Institute. He started, I forget what it's called, but I would love to have Phil Gramm on the show.
Give him a call.
I don't have his number, but
Phil, if you're listening,
Phil. He started something, civics. It's something about to get civics education back into schools, because his premise is if we don't teach our children how to run the country correctly, they're not going to know. He says it better than
Something to be said for civil society.
But the liberal arts education. Now, I have to be careful, because whenever you talk about liberal arts, in this day and age, it kind of automatically is joined at the hip with academia, and I think academia in the United States is a disaster since the communists infiltrated in the 1950s.
Is that what happened?
I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not very much. And but the teaching of people to work in specialized technical contexts versus the teaching of people to to like think broadly and understand all the. You're looking at me like, what? Like,
I'm you're gonna.
I think you have to have a balance. You have to have both in society.
Oh, absolutely. And when I went to college, at first I was thinking like, what are all these ancillary classes? And then I realized they're all important, and they were actually good for me. So
Right. So like what, for example? What ancillary class?
History, and of course, so I tried to focus. All my papers were on technical history, obviously, but philosophy.
How about like philosophy, classical literature?
I'm a huge reader. I'm constantly reading, and it ain't just STEM that I read.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good, and you have to be able to write.
There's a pile of self-help books on your desk. I don't know if that's what.
Yeah, it's not working, is it?
But classic literature, there's a lot to be learned from, ancient Greek and Roman mythology. There's a lot to be learned from classic English literature. Like those people that wrote all that stuff, they weren't just writing stories. They were writing about life.
Those are the ancillary classes for the STEM students.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's my best example. I was working with I work with a lot of high schools on building high school robots.
Yes.
Okay, it's U.S. First Ones. I'm a huge fan, so I'll name drop them. And we're having the championship here in Houston in April, by the way. But I was working with an all-girls school, and I worked with them for 6 years here in Houston. And it's interesting, the gal that ran the place actually showed me a graph.
Is it still there, the old girls' school?
Oh, yeah.
How do they know which ones are the girls?
Well, it's another story. So, these kids, she was able to draw a graph on the number of kids that were going into engineering from based upon that, and she and I both agreed that it was from this robot club because we made STEM cool, and so the girls loved it. One of my presidents. She commented one day, she said, "These power tools make me feel empowered." I said, I know, I loved it. And so I can name off, and I'm still in touch with a lot of these young women and they're now engineers.
Yeah.
And guess what? They're not all working in engineering. Guess what? That's okay. Because people love to hire engineers because A, they're smart, B, they can stick to a problem for 4 years and they know how to solve problems. And so they don't have to be engineers their whole life, but I think going to engineering and getting through the process is huge on your resume. So do I regret convincing all these young women to go in engineering? Absolutely not. Are they all still engineers? Absolutely not.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I don't think it's we need that. What I see is
need more of them. Maybe not 100%. Okay.
It seems to me now. I'm not real. I don't have kids in school anymore, so I'm not really that close to. I'm not at all close to whatever nonsense is going on in schools these days. But what I hear is that as a society, we're trying to push everybody in that direction, and it sounds to me like some of the other disciplines and like we're throwing everything else away is what it seems like.
No,
we're not interested in teaching kids about we only teach them the history that we rewrite the history and we teach them that, and then and we don't want to they don't read the classic literature anymore. They read like the new stuff that's on whatever the the new lists of stupid books for kids. They don't the government class. Do they still have government class?
I hope so. It's essential.
I don't think they do. I don't know.
I don't know. Neither one of us been in college.
Johnny Trevor, do they still have government class? They haven't exactly been in high school for a while, but yeah. So my point is just that we're obsessed with wanting our kids to excel in these technical disciplines, and everything else is kind of, which, by the way, is one of the things that, in a society that is either shifting to or being shifted to, like Marxist philosophy, those are the things you get rid of. And you focus people on technical jobs and tasks and descriptions. I don't know whether that's being done on purpose or by accident, but that's how it looks to me. What do you think? No.
I just want the kids to.
I forgot you're an engineer. I'm sorry.
I just want it to be a emphasized group of studies. It should be legitimized. So let's rewind to when I got out of school. Okay, so 1980.
Wow.
I think it was way back.
I don't even remember 1980.
It says actually in the 70s, but I wasn't going to date myself. So back then,
38 Special was hot in 1980.
Hey, I still got the tapes, 8-track. But back then, 30% of our economy was manufacturing and 10% was financial services. Okay, well, go back then, and it was uncool to get into engineering, because that's beneath so many people.
I hate to tell you, but it's not cool necessarily.
It was uncool, and so people wanted to get into, just like you were advocating, they all wanted to be financial, and they wanted to be lawyers and such. And then fast forward to, early 2000s, we had a bit of recession. I noticed it. Hopefully you did too.
Yeah.
And at the same time, we had gone from 30% manufacturing, 10% financial to it had flipped. We're now 30% financial, 10% manufacturing. Guess what?
Yeah.
Financial doesn't create wealth, doesn't create money.
Yeah.
The only reason it survives is because they're passing money back and forth. That's why. And only now the STEM is making it cool to get back into manufacturing and engineering. We lionize the astronauts and ignore the engineers that put them up on the moon. Something's wrong with that.
Well, the astronauts are a lot more fun at parties.
I don't know. I hang around with some of those NASA engineers, and they're fantastic people.
Yeah, but you are an engineer. I'm with you. I think I just question the so I don't question the value and the need and the entertainment value for sure of the scientists and the engineers. I just think that it just seems to me like as a society right now we're obsessed with that and we're leaving out a lot of other ancillary things which you later found to be important. Like for example, what told you that your history? When did you realize that your history class was actually useful to you?
When I was a kid, I was in college.
Yeah.
But at first, I was like, "Hey, I want to learn the hard stuff." And then you realize, damn it, they're making us study this other stuff, and it's pertinent too.
Yeah.
So,
like how, for example? I want you to give. I want an example. No. I just want to make sure you're not lying to me.
No. Okay. As I speak, I'm reading 3 books. I just finished one, just started one, and the next one's going. Okay, so, and one of them was on history. It was a Rickover in the nuclear navy. So,
yeah.
Okay, that's hugely pertinent, and they don't tell you the secrets of nuclear submarines because that's secret, right? But what they tell you about is management techniques, history, and that's all valuable to me. Okay, so that's historical. I'm reading it because I'm a geek, but
You're reading about technical history.
all right.
Yeah,
And then
okay.
the next one I'm reading is verbal judo.
Verbal judo.
Yeah, it's an English professor who became a cop, and he's talking about how to communicate, and not to win, but how to communicate so both sides win. I'm just getting into it, but it's fascinating. Okay, so that's
Your wife is anxious for you to finish
yeah,
it. Yeah.
there's hope for the marriage.
She wants you. Could you please spend less time on the submarines and more time on this one over here?
Okay. And as soon as I finish, I'm going to read Wealth of Nations by Adam Smith.
Oh yeah, I started that one time.
I hope I'm going to read it,
And,
but we'll see. But so there you go. That's like philosophy,
Yeah.
So I'm not strictly reading, how to program. I think it's all useful.
Right.
I wouldn't read it. I mean, I'm reading it because it's useful and it's entertaining.
Yeah.
So there's.
Well, that's good stuff. Wealth of Nations.
I don't promise I'll finish.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Adam Smith, he's my hero, though.
It's huge.
He didn't like tariffs, by the way. Just saying.
I also do not like tariffs. You know what book I haven't finished reading because it's been sitting here the whole time? Because it's
Take it home.
I started reading The Epic of America.
You broke my glass.
See, it's hard to find good help. The Epic of America. I started reading this, but then I brought it in to be a set prop, so I haven't really finished it. But in the absence of having it at home to read, I've read what other people have said about it, and this is really interesting because you can tell depending on so people who either reference this book in other articles they've written or whatever, you can tell based on their frame of mind, where they're coming from. They have a completely different take on what this book says.
You finish it, recommend it, I'll consider
Then
it.
we'll have to. This is what we should do. If we both read it, and we.
How do you find your books? I mean, I've got a small group of friends that read.
Yeah.
Not many, most don't, but and I get the ideas from them, and then the Wall Street Journal. I like their reviews.
I have a subscription to Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, but I mean, their book reviews, I've frequently are accurate.
You know who writes a lot of Wall Street Journal book reviews? Mark Mills, who has been on this show from the Manhattan Institute.
Tell him he's doing a good job.
I have trouble finishing. I just have trouble finding time to read. Like I love reading books. I have trouble finding time to read them. So
You're not finding the right books.
I'll get 2 or 3 chapters in, and then so right now I'm reading a biography of John Wayne, which somebody gave me for Christmas, and there's been a number of biographies written on John Wayne. Presumably this one is the best, and it was written in 2014. It's bigger than that book. It's a big book. I don't know. It's like 400 pages, and the pages are this big with really small type.
Darn it.
And I've gotten through about 100 and something. I think I'm like on chapter 6 or 7 or something. But it is actually really, because it's not just about him, but it's about. And by the way, John Wayne is one of my 3. Do you know who my 3 heroes are? You probably don't know this.
No, I don't.
Yeah. So I had to think for a second. 3 heroes: John Wayne, Frank Sinatra, Cary Grant.
These are all actors, performers.
Yeah. But you have to know something about their personal lives.
Yeah, I like Rickover. He created the nuclear navy. We haven't had any accidents yet.
Yeah.
That's better than a cowboy movie.
Yeah. No, it's not. No, it's not. Thing I like so Cary Grant is sort of in the lower end of the heroes. The thing I like about him is, by the way, they all demonstrated sufficient amounts of toxic masculinity. So that's
it was normal back then.
Yeah, no, I don't believe in toxic masculinity.
Okay.
I think actually, masculinity is not toxic. It's neither good nor bad. It just is a characteristic. It's what a person does with it that makes it either good or bad. But and if you had taken more philosophy classes, you would know that. Cary Grant said, I thought about the person, I acted like the person that I wanted to be until I became that person.
I'm not convinced. I still think kids ought to go into STEM. And I got to tell you a story. Once upon a time, I was flying on an airplane talking to, I talk to people. And he was saying that he wasn't an engineer, but he's working for a large company. And he said he always hired engineers to be project managers because of the things I mentioned earlier. They can stick to a task, they're intelligent, and they can solve problems. So we're talking, this podcast is supposed to have actionable intelligence, right? So anybody out there that is trying to figure out a profession, Dan recommends get an engineering degree. It's the most credible degree you can have.
We need a whole different episode to tackle that one. I will say that it is certainly it certainly will put you in good graces with all the engineers out there. They will.
Way beyond that. You could be president.
You could.
No,
How many presidents have there been that were engineers?
Only one that I can think of.
Yeah.
There's probably been some others.
Which one?
Mr. Carter.
He was an engineer? I thought he was a peanut farmer.
No, he's a nuclear engineer. He was
Jimmy Carter was a nuclear.
Yeah, he was part of the. They had a nuclear accident in Canada, and he was part of the cleanup crew.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Huh. I did
Not everybody loves Mr. Carter, but I think there's a lot of good to him.
Well, I think Habitat for Humanity was a great thing. Good example of people helping people instead of the government helping people.
But he brought the scientific principles to government, and I think he did a fair job.
Yeah, he did. Well, he didn't ruin anything. I mean, that's good. He didn't break anything while he was there. But he wasn't the most popular for sure. All right, I think we ran out of steam.
Yeah.
So this is good though. But BrainPub Network. Now I think we're at a point where we've stabilized. More or less, but I mean, I'm trying to use engineering terms so you can follow.
Have you noticed that the psychologists all use engineering terms?
Do they?
Stress, things like that.
Social engineering.
Yeah, because they don't have their own words, so they have to.
Stress is a relatively new word. Like when I was a kid, we didn't say stress. Did you say you didn't? Did you say you're stressed back then?
Oh yeah. I've been this way a long time.
Okay. But we are, I'm thinking about maybe like it's time to bring another one or two shows into BrainPub Network. I have a couple of ideas. I have a couple people in my radar that I think we might want to bring into the scene. But if anybody's listening to this,
as long as they don't agree with me, I'm in.
Yeah, well, that's almost everyone.
Oh, well, that simplifies matters.
So I think we're getting to where it's been October, November, December, January. So we've been at this for 3 or 4 months or something like that. We kind of got it going. So I'm thinking it's time to expand a little bit. Get 1 or 2 more shows where people have got something good going on. I don't want to start a new show. I want to take somebody.
I like a good fight.
Like a good fight. All right. Is that it? Are we done?
I think we're done.
That's it, guys.
Click.